Hi, everyone. You might have faced a few tech issues. Because we are operating on a nil budget, it meant we had to make some decisions that, because we had no money, that it's kind of compromising the experience a bit. But hopefully next year we will have donations to help us make this a lot smoother for you. But what we're going to do is that many of our speakers and facilitators are here, and we are going to start with an energizing dance. So Young's gonna play the song for us, and feel free to boogie with us. And this is how we relaxed yesterday, and this is how we want to start our session.
With somebody that I want you, 'cause I'm feeling it in my soul. Something is changing, right in your face, something is scratching, don't be like jazz,
Hi, everybody. It's been a crazy, crazy morning for me in Melbourne, Australia, and I know for some of you. We are about to start. We're going to let people in. If by any chance this session ends suddenly, because I've mentioned that we had to make some unfortunate decisions due to budget constraints, if we get kicked out, do feel free to jump back in. And there's still a few people joining us, so I just thought that we'll give them a few more minutes to join. Tanya, can you play that song again? Because I'm feeling like I really need it right now. And we'll just have one more minute and we'll continue.
Thank you, Yung.
with somebody that I want you, 'cause I'm feeling it in my soul. Something is changing, right in your face, something they scratch, don't be like jazz, they sleep, but this one pass you. Manga. I think that you don't stop. Bonjo. From your feet to love. Bonjo. With somebody that bonjo. Cause I'm feeling it in my soul. Something is changing. Right in your face. Something they scratch. Don't be like jazz. Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you guys for that introduction. That song was chosen by some of our speakers to welcome you into our session. Before we start, if you have the capacity to turn on your video, then please do so. If you we understand if you have bandwidth problems that you need to turn it off. But if you can afford the bandwidth, please turn on your video so that we can our speakers today can see who they are talking to. Wow, it's been a crazy morning for me. I'm not sure about you, but it's been we started our session with young people worried about what if I make a mistake, and I say, guys, adults will make the mistake. And today I say, guys, look, it's not even your problem, it's my problem. So we said today, if we have mistakes, it's all fine. This is the kind of conference to have fun and make mistakes and to learn from each other. So welcome to the 24-hour Global Peace Conference. My name is Elaine Prattley, and I'm moderating this session on Youth Leading the Charge. We are very excited that you can join us for what is promises to be a very inspiring session. If you are, if you can all mute yourself, turn on your videos, and put on a big smile so that you can encourage our speakers today. I know they will be very appreciative of this. The purpose of this session, and this is the heart of what they want to convey to you, is to highlight how young people are doing many, many amazing things to change our world for the better, and that we really must take youth voices and contributions to change seriously. As a Rotary Peace Fellow, one of my main interests is how young people bring positive change to their communities. As a youth researcher, I see many examples of how young people contribute to peace at home, at school, in their communities, and globally. Unfortunately, if you're not working in the youth sector, it's very easy to believe media reports that young people are lazy, they're troublemakers, they're in the in-between stages of waiting to grow up. Only in the last few years, the UN and other organizations have come to formally recognize the importance of young people to peace efforts, and that we should really consider young people's views of how they want the world to move forward. So we have a very impressive panel of young people from Asia and Oceania who will hopefully remind you today of how young people possess a huge reservoir of creativity and energy. And they're not waiting to contribute to change, they are already contributing to positive change in our societies. Many of them might not self-identify as a peace builder, but no doubt when you hear their stories, you are going to agree with me that they are peace builders and are global change makers. For our format, they will be speaking for roughly 25-30 minutes before we break out into smaller groups for discussions. And after that, we will come back and have a close. If by any chance you do get kicked out by the Zoom, do feel free, do click the link again and return if possible. We've had a few issues over the morning due to multiple channels happening at the same time. So please forgive us in advance if that happens. So to begin, let's begin with Yuvani, who is a member of EcoCore. EcoCore is a sustainability group at Suzanne Corey High School in Melbourne, Australia. Last year, EcoCore won the Youth for Peace Award granted by the Australian Psychological Society's Psychologists for Peace. And we have representatives here in our Zoom with Dai and others. And so this Youth for Peace Award was for the video stressed about sustainability. So Yuvani will share clips from that video, and she will talk about some of the substance that she raised in the video. She's going to talk about how we can all take personal responsibility for the health of our planet. Before she speaks, Young is going to play a snippet of EcoCore's winning video. So it's just a few seconds to give you a teaser, and we'll jump straight into Yuvani's presentation.
Are you anxious about the state of the earth? Are you lying on the ground having existential crisis about global warming? Are you wrecked with fear due to the ever-increasing temperature on Earth? Don't worry. Our Earth is going to be fine. Even as global warming makes it too toxic, violent, dangerous to live on, the Earth will remain. Should I just start?
Yep, go ahead.
As you saw, that video was a bit ridiculous. We made it last year in the midst of our Melbourne lockdown. The environmental team came together and we decided we wanted to make a project submission for the Youth Peace Prize Award. And fortunately, we won. But more importantly, in that process, we learned a lot about what is happening to our environment and explored some of the psychological reasons people struggle to take responsibility for caring about the environment. The main points we covered included the severity of global warming, the trajectory our planet is going to be going through in the next few decades, and what we can do about it, and that's also what I'd like to expand upon now. There are a plethora of ways on a personal level to look after the environment, whether it's using less plastic, taking public transport to school or work, consuming less meat products, recycling, using keep cups, taking shorter showers. These are all small adjustments into one's life that are initially difficult, but over time can become ingrained into habit and have the extra benefit of giving you more exercise, saving you money. Making these behavioral changes is highly rewarding. However, it could be difficult for several reasons. On the one hand, nowadays, we all live very busy lives, and it's hard to find time in your schedule to make those behavioral changes. Personally, I found that by joining environmental clubs and societies, it's the best way to stay committed. It allows you to have dedicated time in the week that you could fit into any busy schedule just to care about this one thing. These meetings would allow you to connect to other like-minded environmentalists and stay up to date with any climate change news or any governmental policies. Furthermore, they keep you accountable by consistently motivating you to live more sustainably. However, there's probably a lot of you who already do care about the environment. You do try to stay up to date, but you're still finding it incredibly difficult to take action. And frankly, you're not wrong. I'm overwhelmed. It's an incredibly daunting and challenging task to get rid of this invisible force which is on our planet, because how do you even start to take action as just one person? To take a step back from this, in psychology, an attitude is broken up into three parts. The affective, which is the feeling, behavior, which is your action, and the cognitive is the thought. The thought most people have behind climate change is that it's important and it needs to be dealt with. And the feeling, however, is that it is overwhelming and scary, and the result is that the behavior is to be stagnant and unproactive in order to hopefully dissolve those anxieties. However, I'm also guessing that by not doing anything productive, you're still feeling anxious and guilty. And this is because of an important concept called cognitive dissonance. And it occurs when a person's behavior is not in line with their thoughts, therefore causing distress and mental tension. Some people might resolve their cognitive dissonance by completely altering their thoughts behind climate change and reverting to a stance of denial and a refusal to acknowledge what's actually occurring because of they're inherently terrified of it. This is referred to as emotional focused coping because the individual deals with the issue by addressing how they feel regarding it and not the issue itself. Therefore, to combat our cognitive dissonance, we need to practice problem-focused coping, in which we directly tackle the issue by taking action. Initially, we'd have to push past our fears and just make that small first step, whether it's taking a metal store to a restaurant, taking public transport once a week, not eating meat on a particular meal of the day. Then, as a result of changing that behavior from paralysis to action, that feeling changes from fear to strength because of control you've given yourself. Now, hopefully, starting with these small behaviors can lead to bigger changes, because to actually deal with this crisis, that's what we're going to need. Often we hear about how environmental activism essentially boils down to individual accountability. However, this is propaganda, because based on a Harvard study, they found that a single American household produced 8.1 metric tons of carbon dioxide out of a total of over 33 billion metric tons that is being produced worldwide. This means that majority of greenhouse gas emissions are not being produced by individuals, but by large corporations. And the catch here is that these industries are typically oil and gas companies that have no interest in changing, as they profit of the production of greenhouse gases. They will continue to lobby for the reduced fossil fuel prices and will fund research that denies the existence of climate change. So how are we as individuals meant to actually deal with this? The answer is simple: by boycotting these companies and protesting against bills that support the exploitation of fossil fuels. However, in practice, it's much harder. And so the only thing you can do is to make that small first step, that small first change. And to wrap this up, I will hand it over once again to Pastor Me in the video. So yes, being worried is completely valid, but don't lie around having a crisis. Be proactive, volunteer, vote, protest, make small, sustainable changes to your life. Because right now is the time to value our Earth, because in 20 years it could be completely unrecognizable.
Thank you, Yuvani. That is so awesome. Our second speaker today is someone from Thailand, 13-year-old Lily, who has been an environmental activist since she was 8. She has been, I'm going to boast a little bit about her. She's been in newspapers. She's met all sorts of politicians, dubbed the Greta Thunberg of Thailand for her environmental activism and her successful campaigns with the Thai government and big malls and corporates to reduce the use of single-use plastics. Like I mentioned, she started her environmental activism as a 9-year-old, working tirelessly for 4 years before she saw some fruit. So she's going to share some of her tips and her story of how she was eventually how she managed to eventually be taken seriously by decision-making politicians, and some lessons she's learned from today. And she's going to share some images with us as well. Over to you, Lily.
Hello, everybody. It's so delightful to see you all today, coming here and listening to the voices of the youth. So, hi, my name is Lily, and I'm a 13-year-old environmental activist from Thailand. And I started my environmental activism when I was about 8 years old. And during these last 3 to 5 years, I've been working on and changing the environment and changing the systems in place that are currently destroying it. And when I was about 8 years old, I began to see the environmental effects and the environmental damage that was happening firsthand to our planet. Going to the beaches and seeing sand completely covered in single-use plastic trash. And as much as I tried to pick up the trash, and as much as I tried to fix myself and to trying to stop use single-use plastic and to have meatless meals and educating myself and my family, not much happened. And this really left me discouraged. When I grew sad and angry about what was happening and the pollution that was happening to our earth. And even though I took my own measures and I took initiative for myself to stop using single-use plastic and to be more mindful about overconsumption in our society, things still wouldn't change. And from being in a place of anger and frustration, I came to realize that sitting there, being sad and being frustrated and being worried about something wasn't going to solve the issue at hand. Therefore, I needed to tackle the root of the problem. And the root of the problem was people who were creating all these issues for our own planet, like big retailers and the government and corporations who were putting all of this harmful issues onto our environment. So then I started writing letters to the government and large corporations across Thailand, asking them to stop using single-use plastic, constantly talking with them, creating meetings with large retailers, so that I could try to get my voice across, the voice of the youth, in order to create a safe and happy world that the future generations will need to live on. And at first, I was very angry with what was happening, because I knew that if we wouldn't stop, we would have serious consequences on both of our planet and onto our personal lives. And even though the large corporations and the government and people in power could see all this damage happening to our world, they weren't doing anything to solve it. And this really frustrated me, because the truth is we all live on the same earth together. We have this in common. Therefore, we all have equal responsibility to help it and to take responsibility in order to save our planet. So why aren't we changing our ways? Then I started actively talking to the government and ministries when I was about 9. And after a year of negotiations with large corporations in Thailand and companies, I started to see some change when I was about 12. And eventually, seeing change happening in supermarkets where they wouldn't give out single-use plastics on occasion. And finally, by January of 2020, the government of Thailand and the Ministry of Natural Resources issued a ban of single-use plastic bags in 70 plus major retailers in Thailand. And with my journey of trying to push for change, I found out the best way to make change is to do it collectively, to work together with other people that you may be fighting against. Because yet again, we all live on the same earth together, therefore we must make change together. And it might seem hard, because this issue is so not individual. It's something that the world is suffering with, and it's something that we are all facing as a collective population. But we all have a responsibility to take care of our world and not to exploit it. We are all on the same side here, so we must come together and solve this issue for the betterment of our youth and the future generations that are going to live on this planet. Because although the youth might be 25% of the population, we are 100% of the future. Therefore, we need a clean planet to live on. And I would like to leave everybody today asking them to open up their minds and open up their hearts to changes that might be happening in their personal lives, or changes that they can make to help the environment, personal issues like Yuvani suggested. And just to be empathetic towards our planet, and to be change makers in your personal lives and around the world. Thank you.
That's amazing, Lily. Was it 20% the present, but 100% the future? That's awesome. We will have time for a Q&A later after the breakout session. Next, we have Soumya, who is the co-founder and CEO of Youth for Peace International, which is the empowering youth, which is about empowering youth in their work on conflict transformation. She has worked with the United Network of Young Peace Builders, United Nations for Major Group for Children and Youth, many other youth organizations. It will take me half an hour to go through her whole CV. And she she started all of this when she was young, and she's still continuing empowering young people in South Asia. So Soumya, next, up to you.
Thank you so much, Elaine. It's a pleasure being here. So let me start with sharing how my journey started and why it started. So, as a developing country, youth in India are facing multiple complex problems of education, employment, climate change,
Akif
etc.
is there. Akif.
But, but the biggest and most ignored is the degrading social fabrics. This is the worst for any society, but specifically for India due to its diversity. This diversity is being manipulated for political motives using media and narratives to increase the gap. The discrimination, hate speech, and violence have become so common that opposing these as a pacifist is an invitation to be labeled as anti national. There are many layers to this problem. First, who is most affected? Young people. Who is most burdened? Of course, young people, who will be bearing the enormous and long lasting human, social, and economic cost caused by multiple and often interlinked forms of violence that plague the country. Who is still trying to do something? Young people. Who is most ignored? Young people. Is there any recognition or support mechanisms for these young people? No. What's there? Apathy and ignorance. There are 370 million youth in India, and India is ranked 139 in the Global Peace Index. Still, the National Youth Policy of India gets zero mention on peace in this 92-pager document. Such ignorance. On the other hand, youth are considered as victims or perpetrators of violence, but rarely as enablers who can play an important role in peace building and hence go through experiences of exclusion from multiple stakeholders in India. This narrative is prevalent despite youth having uh, uh, been granted a legally binding right under UNHCR 20 to 50 that highlights such a role. Amid such prevailing narratives and misconceptions, young people are subjected to policy negligence, hard fisted security measures, and experiences of exclusion from multiple stakeholders. You must be thinking, if there is this resolution that is legally binding on all member states, including India, and calls on various actors to engage youth as partners and leaders, increase the meaningful participation of youth in decision making, as well as prevent them and resolve conflict. And then why young people are not leveraging it? You are right, there is lack of awareness in general public discourse, and young people at local and national level are not aware about it. But we, young people, are problem solvers. And hence, despite so many challenges, we are still leading. So now I will take you through the work that I'm doing. At Youth for Peace International, uh, so the organization I started was back in 2015 when I completed my schooling, um, and it's completely a youth-led peace building organization. And we envision a peaceful world of empowered individuals and sustainable society. We work in three domains, which is capacity building, community engagement, and advocacy. Under capacity building, we have trained over 5,000 young people on conflict transformation and peace education in previous years at both local, national, regional, and global level, especially young people who have failed, who live in a environment that is affected by armed conflict. Under community engagement, we provide rehabilitation support to Rohingya refugees in Delhi with focus on trauma healing. We have started a school in the refugee camp where these children from different communities come, and it's a safe space where these students resolve conflict, learn about each other's culture, learn about each other, and in a way resolve conflict. And thirdly, to bridge intercommunity conflict through dialogue. third pillar of our work is advocacy. So we have been advocating for meaningful youth engagement and youth sensitive funding mechanisms. And in India, any organization, if they have to receive funds, uh, they have to go through a lot of documentation, which is next to impossible for a youth led organization. So we have been advocating for youth sensitive funding. And in last couple of years, we have been able to raise 15,000 plus dollars, not just for the organization, but for also for other young people who are uh, working in the peace building domain and who are working in difficult setup. And we are actively working on implementing this resolution in India, and hopefully the narratives will change and we will be able to build positive peace and sustainable societies. Thank you.
Thanks, Soumya. Now we have time for some group discussions. And we have other young people with us today who will be your facilitators. Many of them are doing it for the first time. Some of them are 12, if not younger. And so you will have the privilege of being facilitated by them today. So we want to invite you to post. We have a breakout room notes that we will share the link in the chat box. If you prefer to write rather than talk, feel free to add your thoughts into the table. We are going to assign you to breakout rooms, and we are going to discuss 3 questions. Initially, I came up with 3 questions, and then we discussed it as a group, the teenagers, and they came up with 3 even more better questions last night. So the questions that they came up with, what were some things you in your youth had felt were wrong and had wished you had done something about it? I was like, ouch, that's pretty tough. They came out, they really want to learn from you. What are some things that you wished you did? Second question, what opportunities and challenges might young people have as change makers? And thirdly, how can we better support young people to be positive change makers? In order to get the most out of these discussions, introduce yourself briefly if you can, just your name, which country you're based in, and 1 word to describe your feeling today. For example, Elaine, Melbourne, Australia, excited. And then I also invite you to turn on your cameras so that the young people can also see your faces if you have the bandwidth to do so. So they will ask you to all share your questions, and if you find that your group prefers to discuss 1 or 2 of the questions, you don't have to finish all of them, then by all means, focus on those questions. We will have 20 minutes, 5 minutes to the end of that 20-minute. Please decide as a group, what is the 1 key point you would like to share with the whole group? Today, usually we don't normally get the facilitator to share the questions, but we're giving the facilitators an opportunity to translate some of your discussion points and to convey it to the group as a whole. So our facilitators will try and understand what is the 1 key point that you all collectively agree upon to share, and we'll come back and hear from everyone's wisdom. Is that all good? So we'll now be put into breakout rooms, and I'll see you shortly.
Opening up breakout rooms.
Yes. Yes, Akif.
Akif, you're in room 2.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanya. And thank you for managing all that confusion.
It's a pleasure, Elaine. It's a pleasure. I can imagine the stress you all must be going through.
So that was a really great session. Unfortunately, we ended up with some subgroups being more disproportionately run by young people, and some others were less so. But today we get to see them all give their summing ups. Just to give you an idea, we have some facilitators based in Nepal, Japan, India, Australia, Thailand. Am I missing a few countries? South Korea, and they are as young as I'm not sure if it's younger than 12. There might be one person who's younger than 12, and this is their first time facilitating in a peace conference or a conference. So I think they've done a really good job. For some of them, they were like, what would I do if I make a mistake? I say, no mistakes. In fact, all the mistakes were done by us adults today and not you. So I think they did a really good job. So if we could give them a quick hand, if you can unmute, let's just give them an applause. Unmute everyone. Well done, guys. That was so
Elaine.
Elaine, you're on mute.
If we could have a quick summing up, maybe we got one quick point. So maybe Sunaf, you want to start us off?
Yes, hello everyone. So from our session, the point is knowing the fact that youths have much power and their voice is actually heard. They need to be respected and their views should be accepted by all of us and the adults. So, but the youths need to be responsible and mindful while sharing their views or should be mentored.
Great.
Yes, that's all.
Shimara?
Jerry was gonna summarize for the group.
I'm reporting. I'll report on that one question I just asked. We believe that youth are very media and digital savvy, so that's a great tool that they'll be able to use to connect people, the youth across the world, and they're using that as a positive outcome for peace. Plus, someone already mentioned that the mentorship of youth is important, and the voice of the youth needs to be heard, needs to be told, and we need to open up those floodgates and allow that to happen, especially from us who have been involved in the peace and the environmental journey for so long.
Okay, how about Lauren?
Hey everyone, so from my breakout session, we talked, what our main point that we brought up was that we should be really bringing to light all the action that's been happening at the moment and all the positive change that's happening. Another thing we also talked about was how we should be focusing on positivity and not always being looking at the negative thing, looking at the positive things as well. Thank you.
Great. Nimai?
Hello everyone. So my group came up with is by redistributing the power balance and giving young people genuine opportunities to be heard and led initiatives, we can support them to be a better change maker in the future. Thank you.
Great. And Meher?
We talked a lot about, finding common ground and compassion, maybe turning the negatives into positives and helping people. So it's about compassion, like adults can have compassion towards teenagers. Teenagers can have compassion towards adults about the changes that are happening in their lives. And maybe we can even give the government some compassion for, they also might be facing some problems.
You're so gracious. That's awesome, Meher. And Yuvani?
The point that our group wanted to share was that I think another point a group also reiterated this was that tech is a really big part of getting younger kids to getting the education they need to be those positive change makers, and also maybe our education should focus less on maybe getting kids to think about the hypothetical and more get them to actually take those actions, give them that experience of being change makers.
And Soumya?
Yeah, so in our group, we discussed a lot, but something that really stood out was that we need to co-create safe spaces, like intergenerational safe spaces, where we can uh, build hope and can compassionately listen to each other.
You know, I have to say I've been to many conferences, and that was the most concise summing up I've ever attended or heard. So well done, guys. You guys were so on point, and that was so professional. So very amazed by your abilities to sum all those complex ideas into one point. So guys, thank you for joining us today for the 24-hour Global Peace Conference. We have 50 other skill-based workshops and panel sessions, and hopefully our earlier on teething issues have been ironed out now. And so do return to Hopin. We have speed networking where you can meet. We have over 1,800 people registered for our conference. So you can meet someone at the other end of the world who's up late, or someone in Asia or Oceania. So do take part in that. It's a 3-minute speed networking, and then you can connect with them directly if you want to continue. You will have to, if you're not already, navigate through the Hopin platform. Many of these videos will be on Facebook, our Rotary Peace Fellow Alumni Association Facebook page. So do follow that. So we will be posting those that could be recorded on that. Or you can go to our homepage, rpfaa.org. And if you enjoyed this session, please consider donating to our work. This is put by volunteer peace fellows around the world. We had early on teething issues because we worked on a zero budget, and we only got some donations in the last week or two. But by then we had already made some tech issues, and zero budget gave us very limited choices. We hope next year that it will be a lot smoother, and we'll be able to deliver this a lot more interactively. And again, I want to end by saying well done, to the young people. You guys have done an amazing job. This was really great. So please turn on your videos and your audio, and let's leave them with a really loud clap. Thank you, guys. So please feel free to join the other sessions, and I'll see you around.
Okay.